What the hell just happened? One minute I was serving lunch and everyone was talking away. The next he flung the plate at the wall and called me a fucking selfish bitch. I only asked how his day was and he just turned around and walked back out. That was yesterday evening and I haven't heard from him since. I mentioned I was going away with my friends for the weekend, and before I know it, he is accusing me of having an affair and telling me I have to cancel the trip and stay home. All I said was that the blue shirt suited him better. He tore both of them in half and pushed me over. How did I end up looking like this? I said that maybe he had had enough to drink. I was sat watching television, and she came in full of hell and laid into me. I had no idea what I was supposed to have done. The overriding response to such scenarios and others is, what the hell just happened? At the time these instances happen, the recipient of the behaviour does not know that they have become entangled with one of our kind. The recipient expects the other person to operate by their standards of behaviour, their own mature and reasonable responses, and their own healthy reactions. Not only do they find that their response is anything but like how they would respond themselves, they struggle to discern any logic or reason in how we have behaved. Common reactions to such instances as the ones described above, along with asking what the hell just happened, would include, she blew it up out of all proportion. I don't know what got into him, there was nothing the matter. It was such an extreme reaction, I am at a loss to understand why she did as she did. Everything was going really well, and then, wham, I've no idea what set that off. Indeed, you would have no idea at all what is going on, and why would you? At the time, you did not know that you had become entangled with a narcissist, and this is an entirely typical and standard response. Even when you ascertain, most likely sometime after the relationship has been brought to an end through a callous discard, that you have become involved with a narcissist, these eruptions, disruptions, and volcanic responses still mystify and bewilder. In order to comprehend what on earth has just happened, it is necessary to adopt the narcissist perspective. Despite our boldness, our grandiosity, and the confidence, we are suspicious of the world. The world has treated us badly. It is a treacherous place which has sought from the very beginning to destroy us, and this remains our mindset. As we move through life, climbing higher and higher, driving forward and conquering, we remain vigilant, wary, and indeed often paranoid. There are those traitors, those betrayers, and those plotters who would love nothing more than to do us down, dethrone us, and topple us. Hence, we often strike first before those who conspire to harm us can do so. Our view of the world means that we see criticism, which we despise and hate more than anything else, lurking around every corner. We see it in the words of those who speak to us, and most of all, through the actions and gestures of the shadowy snakes who infest the world. Oh, we are not stupid. We know only too well that you prefer to criticize us through actions and gestures. That way, you are able to diminish the impact by suggesting that we are overreacting, that we are reading too much into it, and that we are seeing things that are not there. Of course, we often accuse you of doing this, but we are never guilty of behaving in this manner. We are always right when we see a criticism arising from something. We are finely tuned to pick up on these criticisms, and therefore we spot them straight away. Notwithstanding our ability to spot these criticisms, we are unable to evade them, and instead, like a serrated dagger, they wound us and make us feel weak, vulnerable, and pathetic. They are an unwanted and horrendous reminder of the very thing we seek not to be. In order to cope with this unwarranted wounding of us, we have an excellent self-defense mechanism: fury. Our fury is always there, churning away beneath the surface, and when we are wounded by criticism, this fury ignites and manifests either as heated fury or cold fury. This means that we lash out at you and others, smash things up, assault people, stand and glare, dole out silent treatments, and so forth. This will nearly always cause the recipient of this manifestation of ignited fury to respond in an emotional manner: fear, hurt, anger, surprise, annoyance, upset, and so forth, which of course equates to fuel. The provision of fuel as a direct consequence of the manifestation of this ignited fury means that the wound caused by the criticism is healed, and eventually the ignited fury will dissipate as it has served its function. A mid-range narcissist has some control over the ignition of his fury, and if he deems that exploding in a certain situation would be detrimental to how he is viewed, he may switch to cold fury, or even withdraw and seek fuel elsewhere to quell the ignited fury and heal the wound. A greater narcissist has substantial control, and for instance, if he deems it necessary to preserve the facade, he will keep the fury under control until there is an appropriate moment to unleash the fury and gain the fuel. Thus, in some instances, the what the hell moment may not happen at the time the criticism occurred, but be a time afterwards. You can see now just how bewildering and disorientating it is. Be aware that a criticism which is allied with emotion is fuel and will not wound us. Thus, shouting at us and calling us all the names under the sun only provides us with fuel. Crying and telling us that we are a complete bastard and useless in bed is fuel. That is why the criticism often arises from perception and from actions and gestures, as they tend to be fuel-free. Returning to the instances at the outset of this article, let's examine how the perception of criticism manifested in my kind's mind. The first example. One minute I was serving lunch and everyone was talking away, the next he flung the plate at the wall and called me a fucking selfish bitch. The criticism arose in this instance because the narcissist was served with his food behind everybody else, thus insinuating that other people were more important than him. I only asked how his day was, and he just turned around and walked back out. That was yesterday evening, and I haven't heard from him since. The criticism arose because the speaker failed to smile and look delighted at the return of the narcissist, thus implying that the narcissist was not worth shying for. I mentioned I was going away with my friends for the weekend. Before I know it, he is accusing me of having an affair and telling me I have to cancel the trip and stay at home. The criticism was spending time with other people, and therefore suggesting that the narcissist was not interesting enough to spend the weekend with. All I said was that the blue shirt suited him better. He tore both of them in half and pushed me over. The criticism was to suggest that the shirt he preferred was not the one he looked best in. This not only criticised his choice, but also how he looked. How did I end up looking like this? I said that maybe he had had enough to drink. The criticism is to suggest that the narcissist has a drink problem, and that his activities ought to be curtailed by you, somebody who is regarded as inferior to him. I was sat watching television, and she came in full of hell and laid into me. I had no idea what I was supposed to have done. This may be an example of delayed fury arising from an earlier criticism, or it might be the fact that the person was watching television and not providing enough attention to the narcissist. You will have no doubt deduced from this that occurrence of what the hell just happened moment can happen at any time, can come out of nowhere, and is not based on anything significant from your perspective. From our perspective, there is the potential for criticism on a repeated and frequent basis. This is what leads to the second guessing, hypervigilance, anxiety, and treading on eggshells that is so often associated with our kind. In terms of dealing with it, it is nigh on impossible to predict. You will at least know what it is and why it has happened. In certain circumstances, it can be used to your advantage to cause a wound and then not to provide fuel when the ignition of fury takes place. This will weaken us and cause us to go elsewhere. But care should be exercised in doing this, as it may escalate the reaction initially with severe consequences. The most appropriate way to deal with this is to be able to know what it is, understand why it has happened, that it will blow over, and that you may be best providing positive fuel rather than becoming scared, bewildered, or upset, since you now know what is behind it. You can then manage it in that way until such time as you can escape the effect and influence of the narcissist as a whole.